Okay, no one talked. This one's different again. They're trying to set a trap for you. Everybody look here. Everybody look. Okay, good. Focus. They're asking for the limit as x approaches infinity. There are no terms adding, so there's nothing to compare. There's nothing to factor. So the only thing we can do is just think about what happens as x gets big. So raise your hand if you can tell me if you remember, as x gets increasingly large, like larger and larger, what's going to happen to the value on the top? Hands up. Does it get larger and larger and larger? Does it get more and more negative? Does it get closer and closer to 0? Does it just stay at 5? Those are kind of the only options. Like what happens to the top as x grows? Jacob?
It gets larger.
How many knew that the top gets larger? Point 2 for Jacob. Hands up. What happens to the bottom as x gets increasingly positive? What happens to the bottom as x gets increasingly positive? Somebody knew. Let's go, Sam.
It gets larger.
How many knew that? Point 2 for Sam. So now we have a dilemma. The top is getting larger, so is the bottom. Here's an example. Okay, the numbers I'm about to write on the board are not calculated. It's just kind of an example of numbers that get bigger. So the top is getting bigger. But because it's the natural log of something, and it's natural log of increasingly positive numbers, the top gets bigger slowly. So as x gets bigger, so does the top, but not quickly. Just a little bit at a time, kind of, I don't know, something like that. But the bottom grows much more rapidly. So maybe the bottom grows something like this. Starts out not growing very much, but it starts to grow a lot faster as x gets bigger and bigger. I'm just making these numbers up. I have no idea. But I do know that the bottom grows a lot faster. So hands up. If you have a series of fractions that are headed in this direction, are the fractions getting bigger and bigger and bigger? Are they getting closer and closer to 0? Hands up. Riley?
Closer to 0.
How many can see it? Point 2 for Riley. So this limit is 0. Which means there is a right half horizontal asymptote. Questions? Please.
For a problem like this, is that all you need to write?
That is all you need to write. There really is not anything to show. Like this is not, you wouldn't show this, just kind of think it. In fact, I've had some people just memorize this. I've seen their notes, they'll write like this. They'll say if you have little big, like the top's getting bigger, but the bottom is getting bigger.
I'll take a bit of it.
Seems like kind of an interesting way to take notes, but it helps them. That's going to head to 0. Doesn't ever equal 0, but it heads that way. So you just memorize that, and then they can answer the question. Raise your hand if you know what the left half horizontal asymptote is. Hands up. It's a trick question. What's the left half horizontal asymptote, Ethan?
Is it C and E?
Because
it never gets to 0.
I think you got the right idea. I'm just going to change the wording a tiny bit. Pointing if your hand was raised, 2 for Ethan. You cannot find the natural log of 0 or a negative. Therefore, there's nothing that exists on the left half side. There's just nothing there. So there's nothing to answer, really. So good work. Anybody else? Cool. Let's do one more.